Now let me focus on the vocals, because they're obviously the main focal point of any project, particularly in a hip-hop song, because you want the rap lyrics to cut through clear and have good listening intelligibility for the listener. So once I had the vocals in this project, they were the first thing that I got to work on. Started setting the levels between them, between the main vocal and the backing vocals, etc. So that once I had them at a nice level and had treated them nicely, I found it more effective to then work on the rest of the instruments afterwards and build them around the vocals, rather than making the beat too loud and then I'm competing to make space for the vocals. Now, an extremely useful feature in Pro Tools that I have relied on quite heavily for this project in particular is something called clip gain, and it's really useful for controlling the dynamic of your audio. So let me show you an example. To display the clip gain, hold Shift, Control and the minus key, and I'm just going to zoom in on an audio clip so you can see parts here where I've added breakpoints and then turn them down or turn them up. To add a breakpoint, hold Command and then click, and then you've created a little parameter that you can increase or decrease, and you can see it visually at the same time as listening to it, which is even more useful. So sometimes you can see the peak before you hear it and then reduce it accordingly. Sometimes it doesn't always need to be reduced, sometimes it's an effective dynamic, but you will come across, particularly in vocals, certain words that either haven't been emphasized enough or some that are too loud and disrupt the consistency of the take. So I found this a really useful way to control my dynamics. I've applied this on various clips. Another useful thing to point out with any vocals in general really, but again particularly with rap vocals, it's always good to stick a bit of reverb on. So what I've done again is I've used a bus to send the same reverb to all vocal channels, so I don't have to keep applying the same reverb insert on lots of channels. You know, it saves time and it saves CPU. So what I've done is I've applied bus sends here where we have the sends box on the channels. That's bus 13 and 14, and if I click on that, it opens up a little fader, and this fader will determine how much of the signal on the channel is sent to the effect, which is on this channel, bus 13, 14. Here's the reverb that's applied to the vocals. So I'm going to solo the vocals and just show you how that's taken effect.
I feel my ears burning up like the herb in a pipe. It's like somebody got my balls in a vice, and I hear a lot of people saying yours isn't nice. I'm ignoring them like.
It just adds a lot more colour and a lot more life to the vocal and brings it out in the mix a little bit more. I have also made use of some automation in this project. That's what these bypassed inserts are for. When an insert on a channel is dark blue, that means it's been bypassed. I can turn that on and off by holding Command and clicking, or I can open it up and turn it on and off there in the plugin itself. So the inserts I have bypassed for automation, I have this distortion, I have a delay, and I have an EQ, a specific EQ that I've applied to my main vocal for when I come in for the break part. If you remember, the break part is this section of the song.
Talking.
Okay, so when my vocal comes in at this part, it turns on these specific parameters.
Look, I ain't saying nothing, no. If you ain't got nothing nice to say, then don't say nothing. I ain't saying nothing, but if you ain't got nothing nice to say, then don't say nothing.
This is because, again, in this part of the song, it strips away most of the instruments and it sounds quite basic and empty. So I thought by adding in some interesting sound to the vocal would just excite the track a little bit more. So the distortion makes it sound a little bit rougher, along with the EQ, enhancing that mid-range, sort of like a phone call tone, you know, and the delay just to make it a little bit more interesting.
Look, I ain't saying nothing, no. If you ain't got nothing nice to say, then don't say nothing. I ain't saying nothing. But if you ain't got nothing nice to say, then don't say nothing. I ain't saying nothing.
So I think that's quite effective. Panning is also a good way to try and allow space for instruments in the mix, because when everything's pan center, that means that all the frequencies that these tracks contain are fighting for space between the two channels on the stereo out. So by panning them left and right at various degrees, you're creating a little bit more space either side. So it's always good, I find, to pan backing vocals slightly, and in the chorus particularly there are a few vocal channels going on from both rappers. So as you can see, these are the vocal channels. There's slight panning going on. Doesn't need too much, nothing drastic, just that little bit enough to make a difference.